Imagine all your audio entertainment available in just one place. That's what the Audible app is all about. With Audible, you can always find the best of what you love or discover something new. Audible has an incredible selection of wellness titles and originals, like The Light Podcast by Michelle Obama, Work It Out by Mel Robbins, and Confidence Gap by Russ Harris. Membership includes access to Audible originals, podcasts, and tons of audiobooks that you can download or stream as much as you want. And as an Audible member, you can choose one title per month from an ever-growing catalog of titles to keep. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere, whether you're traveling, working out, doing chores, wherever your day takes you. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/motivation or text motivation to 500-500. That's audible.com/motivation or text motivation to 500-500 to try Audible free for 30 days.
The weather is cooling down a bit. The leaves are starting to fall. Yes, it's that time of year again, football season. And we all know the best part of any game day traditions are the ones that involve food. There's nothing like having everyone in your game day crew coming together to bring their best bites and argue over whose family makes the best chili. And while there's no need to mess with the perfection of game day classics, like a freshly grilled Oscar Mayer hot dog topped with Heinz ketchup and mustard, it's always fun to step out of your comfort zone and get creative with your recipes. Because there's nothing more fun than adding to your list of game day traditions, like making a creamy and delectable queso dip with Velveeta cheese that can be eaten with so much more than just chips. Now is the chance for people across the nation to find out whose game day eats reign supreme. It's your turn to show off your tasty game day food traditions. Go to www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to share a photo of your game day food tradition to enter to win $10,000. Once again, that's www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to enter to win $10,000.
Tom, did you ever ref any hockey at all?
I rep like a charity game or something like that, but that's the only thing I've ever rep.
Not an easy job at all.
I
have. Yeah, I refed, and a lot of it comes down to, in the beginning, you get hated. A lot of guys scream at you, and you got to keep your emotions out of it. But I think it's a really, really difficult job.
Yeah.
Do you give refs any shit when you were playing?
Oh, totally, yeah. Like, part of it was like a strategy, too. Like, if you were, like, sometimes you just got playing mad and you're yelling at him. Other times you're like, okay, so that was a close call. I'm going to really give it to him here and feel like he owes me something. They get back about it. I don't know if it really works or not, but it was...
so questionable trip, you're like, hey, Stripes, we got one coming our way now, right, Stripes?
Yeah.
Trying to influence them?
We had a game. It was just an exhibition game. We were playing against the guys that were trying out for the U.S. Olympic team, so it must have been for the 88 Olympics. Tony Granato was...
Okay, yeah, 88, yep.
Knowing Tony now, I think he may have done it on purpose, but he cross-checked me in the face.
Whoa.
And referee, Terry Gregson, I think it was, didn't call a penalty. And now there was a splinter in my lip of wood.
Whoa.
So... I walked over to him. I knew it was there, and I didn't take it over. I walked over to him. I said, "Terry, do you think he might stick me or cross-check me?" He goes, "I'm sorry, Tom. I just didn't see it."
It's funny too. When I ref, a lot of guys will be like, they'll lift up their shirt, say, "Look at this slash mark on my arm." Like, okay,
yeah,
you gotcha. What do you want me to do? Go back, in history?
Yeah, and it really has changed now too. Like we talked about the relationships you've had with referees back then.
Sure.
I had a referee early in my career, and it was a preseason game. I was playing terrible, and he made a couple of calls that really weren't that bad, but I was frustrated more with myself. I was all over him, and he looked at me and goes, "Tom, the way you're playing, you should really more worry about your own game." And that kind of stuff would happen, right? And then you go back to him later on, both of you are laughing about it because he was telling the truth.
So I coach Mike ice hockey now, and one of the coaches I coached with last year, Coach Sloan, was, he was berating a ref. And when it's mites, they have kids ref because they have to learn the game.
Oh.
So I look over to him like, we had lost the game. The kid, he missed a goal, whatever the case was, but their kids are 7 or 8. I was like, Kyle, he's 13. He's a child. Just stop yelling at this kid, And he's like, I know, and I get it, but it's like, they're just kids. I learned when I was reffing, the most important thing is to communicate. And you probably noticed if a guy calls you by name, it's like, hey, Tom, watch your stick there. You're like, you know what? Okay, I understand that. I got you.
Yeah.
Terry. It's not adversarial. When I first started, some of the players who weren't stronger players, I kind of was like, why? I was hating these guys. Like, why are they here? Why are they? Man, this is so annoying. These guys don't know any rules. They're always doing the dumb stuff. But then I was like, they love the game as much as I do, and they deserve that respect.
Yeah.
So, ever since then, I've always given respect when I ref to guys, and I communicate, and I try to like make sure that they know I respect what they're doing, showing up, bringing their bag, getting here,
I think, as a referee, or excuse me, as a coach, especially if you've got some experience in the game too, I think it's almost better to try to help, especially those young kids, like,
absolutely,
try to help, like pull them aside, not yell at them, pull them aside, say, listen, I calls made already, can't change it, but here really is the rule, is what we should have done.
No, but that's the thing. But you need to, because we got to grow this game, and we got to this next. If we don't grow refs at 13, 14, we're not going to have refs.
And that's the problem right now too. They're having a hard time finding refs because again, it's coaches sometimes too, but it's the parents too. They get wound up and they yell at kids. Yeah, you're right. Yelling at a 13 or 14-year-old kid, he's probably getting paid $50 for the game,
if that.
Yep. So kids just go, why am I going to do this now? I don't want to
get there. Take some abuse. But I think that it is important to do. When you coached famously with John Tonelli.
Yep.
And now he was obviously the yeller in that group, right?
Oh, to say the least. He was unbelievable. I love the guy to death. I've got utmost respect for him. And there's times I'm going, John, but he was doing it at a place where he really wanted the kids on his team to have the maximum experience out of that season that he was playing with them. And he wanted to push them. Part of that was like sticking up for them if the referee's making a bad call. But he pushed it.
And again, I said when I ref, the most important thing is communication. And today, in this next episode, we probably have one of the best refs of all time and a great communicator. Yeah. It's Kerry Fraser. So this will be a great episode.
I will never forget, and I've told the story so many times, but when we were playing a game in LA, and it's like an all-star team out there, Gretzky's out there, and Curry and Messier and Coffey on the other side, face off at center ice, started the game. I'm out there with Timmy Waters, done this 1,000 times, puck comes back to me, and it's like a grenade. It just explodes. I explained my stick handling, and I can't find it. It's in my feed. Gary Curry comes flying in, picks up the puck, goes down, scores. And we go back to center ice for the face-off, and Kerry Fraser's standing there laughing at me. And he's holding the puck like he's delaying the game because everybody in the building, and everybody on both benches is staring at me like, what are you doing, you idiot? And I'm yelling at him, just drop the effing puck, drop the effing puck.
Nice apple. And I predict that you're going to tell that story on the episode coming up with Kerry Fraser. Just have a feeling.
I don't like to repeat stories very often, but you know what? I think I do it so that people are like really make sure that they get it. Maybe they didn't hear it before, so now I'll say it again.
They're going to hear it too. Enjoy this episode. And please leave us a review.
Yes. Great episode coming up.
This is Full Change with Tom Laidlaw.
Tom, we got a fun one today. We have a legend. Not just because of his career, but also because of his incredible hair. You know who we have. One of the greatest refs of all time. We have Kerry Fraser on the show today.
Well, it's a shame this is a podcast that is not a visual as well, because the contrasting hairstyles here, Tom Laidlaw with no hair and Kerry Fraser with the big head of hair. How are you doing there, brother? Good to see you again.
I'm doing good, pal. You too. It's always good to be with you and see you and see you looking so fit and lean and mean machine. You are a machine.
Better condition now than when I played, which doesn't say a whole lot for that.
Well, I just got off the bike for you. I had to wash my hair after getting off the bike, and I'm doing 19, 20 miles every day.
Oh, you really should. Wow.
Yeah. I started January 1, and I have that blood cancer that you know about, and so I take 9 chemo pills a week, and it causes a little bit of fatigue. And I thought, now as a professional athlete, what would I do? With the travel and I might have 10 games in 12 days, all in different cities. And I'd come into another city and I'd be freaking tired. What would I do? My body says go to bed, but my mind said, no, keep going. And I'd get on, you'd go to the health club, get on the bike, and I'd ride, and it'd spur me on. Yeah. So I thought, this is going to work for this too. And I got to tell you, Tommy, I feel so much better. When I miss it, the endorphins are saying, come on, wake up, give me it.
Well, we saw each other, I haven't seen each other in years, and I saw each other down in Philadelphia. And you look fantastic, too. I'd really forgotten about your illness. You look fantastic, so it's great.
Thanks, buddy.
Great news. So where were you born and raised?
Sarnia, Ontario. I played to the junior A level. We had a really great minor hockey system. We were sponsored by the Chicago Blackhawks in the original 6, so they could get Pat Whitey Stapleton on board. Phil Esposito played junior B there before he and Whitey moved on to St. Catharines Teepees at the time, which was the Chicago Blackhawk farm team in the Ontario Junior A League. And Stan Mikita played there, Bobby Hull, all at the same time. They won a Memorial Cup. So we had good teams. 5 guys off my midget AAA team that my dad coached. My dad, by the way, was a goon. Played in the NHL. Oh, yeah, big time. Tough guy. Forearms like Popeye. And he was also a boxer, and he coached us. He taught me how to fight when I was 12 years old in the kitchen. And I was a lefty, and I had really fast hands. And But he'd say, get your hands up. And I'd put my hands up and whack, he'd pop me one and with an open slap. And I'd go down and get back up. And after about 10 times getting knocked down, I decided I better listen. So I got my hands up and I could counterpunch. And it's funny because you'll love this. We had 5 guys that went on to play. We won Ontario championships with our midget AAA team. And we were playing in a tournament. We had like Bob Neely, first draft pick of Toronto Maple Leafs, big defenseman, 6'1", and big guy. Wayne Merrick was my line mate, won 4 cups with the Islanders. We had Jerry Butler, played the St. Louis Rangers, bunch of guys. And so we're in this tournament against the Michigan team, and they had this big defenseman that was dirty. He was sticking our guys. And the old man coaching, he said, guys, be disciplined. Let's win the tournament, win it. Come on. No penalties. We're up 5-2, 5 minutes left. He walks down, gives me a tap on the shoulder. He said, hey, Kerry, I want you to go teach that big guy in defense a lesson.
Ooh, nice.
So I went out and I could fight better scared than this kid could, Matt. I speed bagged him with both hands, cut him over both eyes. We get thrown out of the game, and I really ripped him. And so I'm in the dressing room. The guys all come in. We win the tournament, and I hear this argument going on out in the hallway, and it's my dad's voice. And all of a sudden, he slipped in the dressing room, locked the door. He came over. He put his arm around me. He said, listen, Kerry, I'm really proud of the way you taught that guy a lesson. He was a bully, and he needed to be taught something. He said, well, you took the kid. I don't think you can take his mother. She's out there waiting for you. So it gets better. I said, well, so what are we going to do, Dad? He said, and I was 115 pounds. That's it. He said, you see that stick bag there? I said, yeah. He said, get dressed, get in it. We're going to zip you up. He threw me over his shoulder and walked me past the mother, looking at the faces of all our players.
Oh,
No way.
that's a great story. That's good.
Your dad threw you in your hockey bag and walked out of the ring.
Put me in the stick bag and walked me out. The game was in Port Huron, Michigan at the McMorran Arena. If you think about it, the guys like Bob Neely, he was a tough guy, big guy. But I was the guy that the old man said, okay, go get him. And, I hated bullies, and I played to the junior A level. I wasn't good enough. I had a lot of U.S. Division I athletic scholarships. Brown wanted me big time, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was undrafted. I was maybe going to play in the minor pro league somewhere, see if I could crack it. And the guy that played pro with my dad was coaching in the International League and then went on to coach the Detroit Red Wings, Ted Garvin. And Ted saw me as a kid, in diapers. And he said, listen, you're a good little player. You play big, you play tough, but you're not going to make it to the NHL. He said, you can play in our league, the IHL at the time, or maybe the American League, but that's going to be the end of the line. You'll probably get hurt. And he said, why don't you get into officiating? He said, we need former players that play to a good level, that understand, the emotions of the game and players, coaches, frustrations. And you're a great skater. He said, why don't you try officiating? I think you could make it to the NHL. Well, it was great advice. I went to a referee school that summer. It was 1972 when the World Hockey was formed and there was opportunities being created at all levels of the game. And I went to this referee school in September. The 72 Summit Series was going on with Team Canada playing against the Russians. And my good friend Whitey Stapleton was part of that. And so I ended up being scouted by Frank Udbury, a Hockey Hall of Fame referee and assistant director of officiating at the time. He saw me work 10 minutes of a men's intermediate league game at this camp on a Thursday night. And he took me immediately into the dressing room, met me, introduced himself, and said, I'd like to bring you to the NHL training camp for officials. I think you've got what we're looking for.
Wow.
So 2 days later, I was in Toronto at the NHL officials camp, and 10 days spent there. And I had no idea that I was, as a player, you'd think, who the heck wants to be a ref, right? But it was the right decision for me to make. And I sat there like a rookie, knowing that you keep your mouth shut and your ears open. Unlike today, maybe some of the younger entitlements. And funny story, we were going through the rules at the time, and Scotty Morrison was the referee in chief, and we went through every rule of the book at different meetings over the course after we finished our workouts in the morning. And there was a a rule for spearing. And Tommy, you could either, the ref at that time could impose a 2-minute penalty or a 5-minute penalty based on his discretion. So I was sitting beside Lloyd Gilmore, who was the ref that refereed the Russians in Philadelphia, and the Russians left the ice because they were getting hammered, right? Lloyd didn't call a lot of penalties. So I said, Mr. Gilmore, I said, what's the difference between a 2-minute penalty and a 5-minute penalty for spearing? He said, well, kid, if you see the stick go in, it's 2 minutes. If you see it come out the back, it's 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. It was a little barbaric back then. That Russian game was something else. Yeah.
Hey, Kerry, you mentioned how your dad wanted you to stand up to bullies. How did you take that with you as you ref? Like, say someone was getting picked on in the game. Like, did the dad
caused a problem, Tom? I got to tell you, it did. And because I had the little man syndrome, the chip on the shoulder. And my first game, I was a junior B. I was sent from Hamilton to Collingwood. And my very first game, we're playing the Kitchener Rangers. And I was looking for a first shift, looking back for a pass coming out of the zone. And Chris Aarons, who played in Minnesota, was drafted by the North Stars. Big guy. He stepped up and elbowed me right in the head. And I was like deer in the headlights. I was knocked out on my feet. I staggered to the bench. He got 2 minutes for elbowing. And I shook the cobwebs out. And I went, man, this is like my first shift. I got to do something here. So there was a bigger guy that was playing on defense for them. And I went out and fought him, and I beat him. And when a little guy, Tommy, beats a big guy,
yeah.
it's like, I think of little guys like Bobby Basson and little guys that really could throw him. And so this guy was embarrassed, and he wanted to go again. I beat him again, and I thought, this is great. I'm going to just go through and fight big guys once, hopefully, and, see what I can do. And it worked out pretty good for me. But, I don't profess to be a tough, I was just a little junkyard dog. So now I took that attitude that served me well as a player, and now I'm refereeing. I should have been part of the solution, but there were times based on my chip on the shoulder, little man syndrome, that I was part of the problem. And very early in my officiating career, I had no experience, and I kind of learned on the job. And taking that personality that I had developed from the schoolyard right through to that point in now officiating career, and I agitated people. And in one particular game, Danny Gare was playing in this game. They sent me to the Western League my first year under contract to the NHL to get some experience. And Danny's team, Calgary, was kicking the heck out of the home team, and the fans were frustrated, the coaches and the players were frustrated. Every time another goal was scored against the home team, the fans littered the ice. Players would come up and chirp me. I'd bang them with a misconduct. I had them sitting 3 deep in the penalty box by the time just about to the end of the third period. And the coach had enough of me at this point. Another goal scored, more litter on the ice. And he sent his captain over very politely, Tommy. He said, Mr. Referee, my coach wants to know if he can get a penalty for thinking. I said, well, if he doesn't think out loud, he's probably going to be okay. He said, in that case, he thinks you're a fucking asshole. Well, I started laughing. And
yeah, that's good.
I looked over at the coach, and he had this stern look. He was 1 foot up on the dashboard. Then he grinned, and then he started laughing. I gave him a thumbs up. And it was a good lesson for me. Don't be an asshole, Kerry. Enjoy the game and try and get along with people. Try and, develop relationships. And it served me well. I had a big confrontation with Wayne Gretzky in my very first game in the NHL.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, with him. And it was another learning experience for me. We didn't have a diving penalty back then. The game's in 1980, early in the season, my first year in the NHL. And it's in Northlands Coliseum. And the great one, he was like God even then at Northlands. And I dropped the puck in the opening faceoff. Bobby Clark, the Broad Street Bullies are playing there. And within 5 seconds, Wayne got touched. He kind of jumped in the air, and he turned his head to see if my arm was going up before he hit the ice. Obviously, in my judgment, he took a dive. I took it personally, and we had no diving penalty at the time. But in my head, I'm saying, okay, buddy, you're going to play on your knees tonight. You're trying to embarrass me right off the bat? I'll show you.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah, I saw no penalties were called when Wayne was fouled. I called the other penalties. Now with the Flyers up by 1 goal and a minute and a half left in the third period regulation time, Pelly Lindbergh catches the puck. I stopped the play. Gretz behind the net in his office, jumped in the air, threw his hands out one way, feet out the other way, boom, belly smack on the ice. But Clarkie skated over to him, no teeth. He said, "Get up, Gretzky, effing baby." Oh. I went over, I said, "Wayne, what are you doing?" I said, "There wasn't anybody within 15 feet of you." He said, you wouldn't have called it anyway. You haven't called a blank thing all night. I said, "You're right. I'm going to start right now." Boom, I give him an unsportsmanlike conduct. Wow. He said, "Thanks. It's about effing time you called something." And he stormed to the dressing room. Didn't even go to the penalty box. Now, here's the moral of the story. After every game, and I've got a memory like a VCR replay machine back then, I could replay all kinds of things. And even to this day, you ask me a play, it pops up in my memory banks. I knew in replaying that game, trying to figure out something to do better, it hit me like a freaking Tommy Laidlaw slap shot between the eyes. First one. I was laying on the ice.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
So I went, "My God, Kerry, you compromised your personal integrity. You compromised the rules of the game. You compromised the game you love and your employer. You got to be better." And I figured out what caused it. And it was that little man syndrome, chip in the shoulder from the playing days. And the next time I saw Wayne, I apologized. I said, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I was big time bad wrong. But please do me a favor. Stay on your feet. Work through things. If you get fouled, my arm's going to go up."
What do you say to that?
Fair enough. And we developed an amazing relationship, professional relationship. As a matter of fact, at the end, Wayne, when I wrote my book, The Final Call, Wayne wrote the foreword in it.
Awesome.
So we had an amazing professional relationship, and it was a good lesson for me too, because I worked at that kind of philosophy, developing relationships with guys in a very intense element of the game at that time. We're talking like 80 through we'd eliminated the bench clearing brawls in 79, 80 because we lost the TV contract with, I think it was CBS at the time, because the games were taking too long to play. So, and from a safety perspective, obviously the bench clearing brawls were just wicked with one referee and two linesmen on the ice. And, but it was a tough brand of hockey, and we had such rivalries, Tom. You guys at the Rangers with the Islanders, and then you had like
Flyers.
Whoa, the Flyers and Boston, Montreal, you name it.
Edmonton, Calgary too. They were good, yeah.
Big time out west, and every like the Norris division, the old Norris division.
Yeah.
We used to call that the Chuck Norris division.
Yeah.
Because no matter who played, whether it was Toronto, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Minnesota, they had the talent that would step out and away they go. And it was tough hockey. You knew there was going to be the tough guys are going to fight every night.
Yeah. You know what I've always wondered too? I played with Phil Esposito in New York and then Wayne in Edmonton, and I would see them get on the referees, and you guys are human beings, right? You've got to, when Wayne Gretzky is standing there in front of you yelling at you because you just made a bad call, it's got to affect you a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. And again, with my new vision of how to deal with aggression, I wanted to bring the temperature down. I'll give you a story about Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet, young captain of the Philadelphia Flyers. He's like 22 years of age. He could fight. He's a power forward. Yeah. He could score. I mean, he was a leader. His guys respected him. So he consequently, as the young captain and very emotional, thought one of his jobs as a captain was to yell at the referees. And he was getting all kinds of misconducts from my colleagues. I had a game in the old Spectrum, some calls made, and he's right in my face yelling at me. I thought, I want to take control of the situation in a proper way. So I put my open palms up, which is a sign of peace. And in a very calm voice, I said, "Rick, I'd love to talk to you, but to do so, you need to calm down." And I said the word please. Right away, he listened. And I said, "Listen, you're a great player. You're a great young captain. You can fight, you can skate, you can score. Your players absolutely respect you. You're a great leader. But I said, you can't do any of that, Rick. From sitting in the penalty box, you're spending way too much time for getting talking penalties from the other referees. I said, if you have a question, please come and ask me. I'll give you an answer. We may not agree. I said, but you can't play against two teams on this ice and win. You can't play against the guys on that other bench, and you can't play against the Stripes at the same time. And I could see a light go on, Tom. It was like, boom, that makes a lot of sense. And we developed a relationship where if, he had a question, he would come and ask me. I'd answer it. We could agree to disagree, but it kept him out of the penalty box.
That's pretty cool.
Sorry, who was some of the best chirpers or talkers with you? Aside from Tom Laidlaw.
Oh, I didn't know Tom could talk. I'm glad to see that he has a podcast.
I could quickly jump in. Quickly jump in. The play, you don't remember this, but we're in LA. I told the story before when we were in Philadelphia together. And I'm on the ice. It's opening face-off, and it's like an all-star game or a Hall of Fame game. Kerry's on the ice, and Mark Messier and Paul Coffey and everything. And Wayne wins the draw back to me, and I've done this a million times. I get the puck, I pass it over my partner, I pass it up the wing, no problem at all. For this occasion, the puck decided to explode on me, and I could not find the puck either. Instead of in my skates, and Kerry's just going 100 miles an hour to get the puck. Goes down. This is right off the opening faceoff. Goes down and scores a breakaway. Now I am totally embarrassed. I'm like all the fans seen this, all the teammates. Everybody's looking because I played long enough now that everybody thought I was like Mr. Dependable. I do the same thing all the time. So we get to center ice. You got the puck now. And you're intentionally holding on to the puck and not dropping it, so that it was more embarrassing for you. It was hilarious. We had enough of a relationship in that time that was funny. But I'm yelling at you, like, drop the effing water, Kerry. And he's dying laughing, just like he is now. It was hilarious. I mean, it wasn't hilarious at the time, but now I look back at it, it was pretty funny. So, that was good stuff.
Well, that's all part of the relationship building.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Well, it was because I played, I must have been like 8th or 9th year in the league by then, so we knew each other very well. And you felt comfortable enough that I was a smart ass. So you're going to give it back to me now because that was fun.
You bring up a really good point. I have heard fellow referees chastise a player that is new in the league. It's so inappropriate, and I've heard it. One senior guy that shall remain nameless said to a player who was chirping him a little bit, "Who are you? What's your name? Let me see the back of your jersey. Who the hell are you?" Like, when you've been in the league 5 years, you come and talk to me. And I thought, oh my God, that's so inappropriate. So here's what I would do during the first time I would see a player, a draft pick, usually in the preseason. I would look at the roster beforehand and I'd get the press notes. This guy's drafted, such and such a first pick, whatever. Just a new face. And I'd look at his bio. And I would introduce myself before I even dropped the puck. While the guys are skating around, we're waiting for the national anthem, I'd skate up and introduce myself and say, listen, good luck. Wish you a safe year. Stay healthy. Give them a little background on what I just read and say, if you ever have a question, please, just feel free to come up and ask me. And it set the table before we had any kind of confrontation. And I mean, I'd done a whole bunch of Stanley Cup finals, and the young players coming in, like you being a veteran, they kind of recognize you, they look up to you, and you become their mentor, right? As a player. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's really smart. Yeah.
We're all in the game together. And then they took our names off our back. And Shane Doan he's a great guy. I love Shane. Yeah. And he came up to me in Arizona before I dropped the puck one night. And he said, we're in the two referee system at that point. And he said, "Hey, Kerry, what's your referee partner's name?" I said, "Why, Shane, do you have a problem with him?" He said, No. He said, "I just like to call him by name. And I don't know who he is." So that's a captain that is working the other side of it.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. So what's the biggest game you've ever refereed?
Oh my God. I did 2,165 of them.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. Your first Stanley Cup final was always a thrill. That was 1985, and it was the Flyers and the Oilers, that young Oiler team. It went into 5 games. I got pressed into action. Van Helmond was supposed to work Game 4. We went for a morning skate at Northlands. He went around the ice once and said his back hurt, and he wasn't able to work that night, which was shocking to me. And John McCauley was our boss. I said, well, I was in bed early last night, went to an early movie, and I'm ready to go. And so Macaulay, pivotal game 4, right? And this is my first finals. And previously to that, I'd only done 1 round of playoffs 2 years previously. I did 2 rounds the next year, and now I'm in the Stanley Cup Finals in year 3 of my playoffs. Wow. And Macaulay's like, Andy, don't be screwing around here. He said, if you can work, you got to work. I said, John, relax. I'm good. I got this.
Good.
It was an amazing game. I had the Flyers down 2 men at one point, and one of the Sutter twins on the kill intercepts a pass in between D to D. He's going in a breakaway. He gets pulled down from behind. I call a penalty shot. I went to Grant Fuhr. You played with Grant, right?
Yeah, played against him.
Yeah. So Grant was so calm in his desk.
Yeah.
So I went up to him before Sutter's going to take this penalty shot. And I went, Grant, listen, stay in the crease until he touches the puck. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll blow the whistle. He said, shrugged his shoulders. He went, just send him. Just send him. And it was like, so Sutter goes in and Grant makes a save. And I thought, wow, there's other goalies that Billy Smith, for example, he intense personified, especially in the playoffs. Ronnie Hextall, same kind of guy, whacking the posts and chopping guys. And here's Grant. And Marty Brodeur was the same way, just calm, like, send him.
Yeah.
I got this.
It's been a Grant Fuhr. I remember I got traded out to LA, and I don't know what I was doing, but I was down in the offensive zone, and I slid into him, and it was a big game too. And it just like the same thing. He goes, "Hey, Tommy, how do you like LA? You enjoying it there?" And the game's going on. I go, "Yeah, it's good, Grant. Yeah, I'm like, it's pretty cool." But he was like that, definitely. Yeah, it didn't bother him at all.
Now, you mentioned biggest game. I guess the biggest call that I didn't make.
Oh, yes.
This is for Toronto fans now.
Yeah, it's 93, and it's game 6 in the Western Conference Final. Leafs are up 3-2. If they win, we've got a Montreal-Toronto Stanley Cup Final. Canada's licking their chops, and so are the Toronto Maple Leaf fans, because they hadn't won since 67, which I watched as a little kid in my Leaf pajamas with the trapdoor and the feet in them. So, and no ref wants to be part of a win or a loss. You don't want to be the reason. And in this particular case, I just missed it in overtime with the Leafs on a power play. And sure enough, when Killer came to me, it was off a face-off, and the puck won by Wayne. He shot the puck. It hit Jamie McCowan's shin pad and bounced back reflected right back to where the face-off guys were, Doug Gilmour and Wayne Gretzky. And then I saw a reach, like I thought another shot maybe was taken, and then I saw Gilmour bend over, grab his chin. Play stops. He's dabbing blood. I said, Killer, please help me. What happened? I didn't see it. I didn't see it. He said, well, Wayne shot the puck and his follow-through caught me in the chin. That's what Doug Gilmour thought. I said, well, if that's the case, that's not a penalty. He said, okay. Something didn't smell right, because when Wayne was always there pleading his case, right?
Right.
He was, this particular time, he's off to the side wall.
That's right. I remember, yeah.
Yeah. So I went, something else happened, I'm sure. So I called the 2 linesmen over. We tried to sort it out. They couldn't help me. Ron Finn was at the blue line. He was looking through their back. Huck Finn had the balls of an elephant. If he saw it, he'd tell you.
Yeah.
No matter when.
Huck Finn. I didn't know you called him Huck Finn.
Oh, yeah. He was in L.A. He was part of the, they had an intruder at the LAX Marriott one time who came and knocked on the door with a security guard uniform on.
Right.
And Huck opened the door, and Ron Asselstein was in the room with them. They were having a beer, and the guy pulled a gun, and Huck had the presence of mind. He came to rob them. It was just a bore. He stole the uniform, and he came to rob them. Huck slammed the door. The gun went off, shot through the ceiling.
Wow.
And they got this guy. He was a convicted murderer. And so that's life on the road sometimes for an NHL official. But anyway, I missed the call, and if I look back on it throughout my career, it's not the great calls you made. You never remember those. It's the one that you missed. And
you know what though, Kerry? I think you built so much of a reputation that people respected you so much that you missed it. That's going to happen, right? You're not going to be perfect out there.
Well, that's true, and you know, you always want to be perfect in a very imperfect job. It's human. You're human, but the aftermath of that, I mean, fans in Toronto remembered that forever. Even to this day, on the anniversary, it fires up again. But my old man, remember the tough guy I'm talking about with Popeye Forearms? Dad taped every playoff game that I did in his VCR. I got boxes of tapes. He died in 2011 or 2001. I'm sorry. And so I called Dad, and he fell asleep. West Coast game. He said, "Yeah, I had my tighty whities on." He had a bit of a drum on him at that point, but he still had the forearms like Popeye. And he said, "We had some excitement here last night about 3 a.m. After your game." He said, "By the way, I saw the replay. He did hit him with a high stick." I said, "Thanks for that, Dad." So he said, I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning. I hear this car banging into the back of my little mini motorhome trailer hitch." And I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "Well, I slid the patio door open. I grabbed the axe that I used for chopping wood, and I chased him up the street in my underwear." And he said, "I got a couple of good licks in on the back quarter panel of his car." I said, "Oh, geez, Dad, that's not good." I said, "No coincidence here." So I called NHL security, and they said, "We'll check it out." 2 days later, I get a call back from security. They said, "Yeah, we caught the guy. He's a Leafs fan from Kitchener-Waterloo. And he was so pissed off about the call you missed, he drove to Sarnia to find your family home and do some damage." And they found his car in a body shop. That's how they got him.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, getting the axe straps out. So the guy was lucky the old man didn't get him.
Well, just that image of your dad running up in his tidy whities with an axe hacking away at the car. That's pretty amazing.
I'm talking certifiably nuts.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
My dad.
The linesmen were pretty funny guys too back then too. They all had really strong personalities, and everybody knew the linesmen too, like Asseltine you mentioned before, Rod Finn, Ray Scampanello. Scampanello was funny one time. It's probably my 6th or 7th year in the league, and we're playing a game in Toronto, and I can't remember what happened. The puck went over the glass, and Mark Osborne was on Toronto at that time. I played with him in New York, and Eddie Olchuk was there. So now the three of us, the 2 Toronto players, myself, were talking to Scamp to go back and forth with what our impressions of what happened during the play. Scampy goes, "Tommy, you tell me what happened. You never lie." So I told him my version of what happened, and he says, "Okay, that's it. Tommy doesn't lie. That's the end of the story." And the 2 guys, Olchuk and Osborne, are looking like, "What? That's it? Because Tommy says so. That's it."
That's funny. You know, I worked my first, most of my finals with Ray Scampanello and John D'Amico, 2 Hall of Fame guys. I mean, how much better can you get than that? But and you might have been in this game. It was my milestone games. Refs are recognized for 1,000 games, and then I set a new bar for 1,500 games that has been accomplished by a couple of other guys after me. And so it was the 1,000 games, and they bring out the red carpet, and I get the Eskimo soapstone, and all my family's there. I get 7 kids, and now 13 grandkids, and Pat Quinn. That I always wanted in both games. I wanted the Leafs to play the Rangers, 2 original 6, and so Pat Quinn's coaching, and Pat, he didn't like referees at all, and he really didn't like me, right? Oh. So the crowd is, they're applauding when I'm honored, and Scampy standing over by the Toronto bench, he says, "Hey, Quinner," he says, "look at all the people, Fraser's 1,000th game. They're applauding him, and you got your arms folded. Give him a clap." He gave him one little clap like that, and he said, 999 too many.
That's funny. I didn't realize he didn't like referees that much.
Oh my God, he hated us. And Brian Burke told me when he was his assistant GM in Vancouver, he said, "Listen, it's nothing personal, Kerry. He just doesn't like any referees." So I had a game in Montreal. The Leafs are playing, and I got in, for a late breakfast at the Marriott there, and Benito is the maitre d'. We all know he's been around forever, and he sits me down at a table. Now Quinn comes in with his newspaper under his arm, and Benito puts him right at the table next to me. The place is empty. Quinn goes, "Benito, the whole GD restaurant's empty, and you set me down beside the GD referee." I kind of chuckle a little bit, but he's not joking. And he sits down, and so I asked him a question about immigration because I knew he was a lawyer and his daughter was applying for dual citizenship or something. So we broke the ice a little bit. We chatted. He gave me some legal expertise and tips on it. And the Leafs win that night. They win by 1 goal. And as he's crossing the ice at the end of the game at the Forum, I skated up to him and I said, "Hey, Pat, see, you win. You have breakfast with the referee." He said, "If I had known that all it took, I'd be eating with you all the time."
So you got in a total of what, 2,100 games? Referee?
Yeah, 1904 regular season and 261 Stanley Cup playoffs, 12 Stanley Cup finals. I had the Olympics in 98 in Nagano when we were first allowed to go over. And then the 96 World Cup of Hockey prior to that. And I took a crew, Scampy and Dan Shakti, God rest his soul, he passed this year.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, we're guys, from our era dropping off. And so we had a terrific trip over to Europe. The Czechs were playing the Germans in Garmisch-Partenkirchen in the Alps, Austrian Alps, right at the border, for the last spot to come over to the medal round. And the Czechs had an amazing team, all those stars, Yager, but they weren't playing as a team. They were playing as individuals. They were arguing with their coach. They got beat by the Germans, and it was like, wow. So very exciting. Then we came back and did the medal round over in North America and the gold medal with U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, Kerry, we talked about that a little bit because that's a series, I think it's a little bit overlooked, but it was an amazing series, that Canada-U.S. series. It really was. You guys lost, Tom. But
yeah.
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, the Americans played great, and that the gold medal game, it was war. Like, I'm talking stick swinging, and Terry Gregson refereed it, and Scampy, like, he was on the lines. He said, "If we don't start calling something, somebody's going to die out here."
Oh, is that right? I had that fact.
Keith Kachuk was swinging with one foot. They were like full on.
Yeah. Bill Guerin was on the team too. That wasn't,
great. Yeah. What a great guy Bill Guerin is.
I've heard that. I've never met him, but I've heard some very good things about him. Yeah.
Awesome guy.
You mentioned Terry Gregson. We played a preseason game when I was in LA against the U.S. Olympic team, and Tony Guerrero was on the team. Yeah. And he would make things look like he was accidental. I mean, the stick was always up in your face. And he got me in the lip and broke the stick, actually, and there were splinters in my lip. And Terry Gregson didn't call anything. So I go over to Terry. And I was pretty calm, because Terry's a good guy, too, right? So
great guy.
Yeah, so I go over to him, Terry, he got me in the mouth. So he said, "Oh, I don't think he did." So I turned and looked at him, the splinters were sticking out of my tongue, my lip. He says, and he felt terrible. I felt bad, but he felt so bad. He said, "Tom, I'm sorry. I just didn't see it, Yeah. Then there I was with the splinters hanging under my lip.
Kerry, you said you have a great memory. Do you have a favorite game that you ref?
Yes. I'm going to go to the 2010 New Year's Day, the Winter Classic in Fenway Park in Boston. And it was because it took me back to my youth growing up in Canada on an outdoor rink that Dad built in the backyard and playing, and Merrick's had a rink around the corner. They had the boards, the whole deal. We'd go over every Saturday after we had our practice with the, whatever all-star team we were playing on. And we had a neighborhood game. And so this stepping out of the going through the dugout and knowing that all the famous baseball players that had walked through that dugout in that old historic ballpark, and then moving towards deep short where the rink was and seeing Bobby Orr and Bobby Clark, the two honorary captains in their jerseys, as I stepped onto the ice, shake their hands, give them a hug. And I took off. The air was crisp. We had fresh snow the day before, a fair amount of it. And I felt like a kid again. It was like, boom, I took off and my legs were light. The air was crisp. You could taste it. And boom, it was a fond memory of where I came from. And at this stage of my career, in my final season, it took me right back to the beginning.
So why was that your final season? Did you make the choice to?
Yeah, I mean, I was 30 years in the NHL, Tommy. I'd done everything. The game had changed in a sense that we came back from the first lockout with the no touch, no hooks, no holds, forced players to leave the game. One of the things that was created that was in a negative sense was the fact that you weren't holding guys up, and you as a D-man were going to get pasted against the wall. We had a tag-up rule on the offsides. It was a game of speed and skill. Great. But it became, based on the little ticky-tacky penalties that were being called from, that never off the puck. They never would have been called previously.
Yep.
Guys had to fight through it, which isn't, it's not right. You know, guys like Mario should have been able to display their skill. Mike Bossy, same kind of thing. Scored all those goals with guys on his back. And, but it created a situation where they didn't want the physicality to leave the game. So henceforth, hard hits, high hits sort of were looked upon as good hockey plays. And I had a problem with that. And I stuck up for the players. And I said, this, 5 years before I retired, I said, this isn't good. Things are going to happen bad. And we're going to have more Lindrosses.
I was just thinking of Lindros. I was thinking of Lindros hitting people too, right? So you couldn't hold him up anymore. Puck gets dumped in, and now he's ramming guys on the boards. Yeah,
exactly. And I had the game. Scott Stevens clocked him.
Until
it was it was awful. Game 7, and he was in the fetal position. I thought for sure that he'd be eating porridge the rest of his life. And Scott Stevens was a fearless guy, but I saw fear in his face after he hit him, and he's laying on that fetal position. And he was white as a ghost over at the Devils bench. And I think he thought he went too far. But, Eric got up, and I know he's an advocate for keeping the hits off the head, as I am.
Yeah. But then Stevens did the same thing to Paul Correa. So he didn't learn from it.
And you know what? He left the game with head issues himself.
Who, Scott did?
Yeah, with concussion issues.
What's your take on that, Kerry? Because there's a lot of talk about that lately, about taking that, even taking those hits out completely.
Not even head hits, just
these hits.
No, it's a game of physicality. I mean, I talked to my good buddy Craig Ramsey, who's coaching over in Slovakia right now in the World Championships, and I said, Rammer, why is it these guys are getting hit? Like, they're oblivious to their environment, and they're puck watching, and they're admiring their passes. And he said, Kerry, I'm going to tell you 2 things. First of all, in our era, the first thing you did after you passed the puck was you got your stick up. And if the guy was going to come through it, he better be a beaver to eat the wood, because otherwise he's not getting you. And the other thing is, you always knew where everybody was on the ice, and especially a guy like Scott Stevens that was, lurking like a shark, waiting to step up and make that big hit. So I think the Georgie Peros and the Department of Player Safety has done a great job.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's always more to do. And I think as the game evolves and each game is different, they have to react and respond to situations that they don't want in the game. And I think the players are getting it finally.
Right. But again, these kids are growing up. First of all, they can't hit until 12 years old?
High school now.
High school?
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're unaware how to hit people properly. Right. And they think the rules are going to protect them. Like, you see these kids going to the boards face first. So they're standing there about 3 feet away thinking, well, the guy's not going to hit me because it's against the rules. Well, they get it.
Well, it's been some controversy because here in New York, Jacob Trouba's thrown a couple of monster hits, old school hits this year. And, even the guys he hit, when he hit Kadri said that wasn't a penalty.
Right.
I mean, but he said to fight after each time because the bench.
Well, that's a whole other thing too. Yeah, I think that's we've talked about this before, where the player from the team that got hit, that wants to jump in and fight it right away. Well, first of all, that's bad discipline, I think. Yeah, let me hear your say, Kerry, because now he's going to get that extra penalty, which hurts his team. Right. And he just said, okay, we would make the guy pay. We'd make him wait. Like, we'd talk to him all during the game, say, listen, we're coming for you. We're going to get you. And then you wait till the right time to get him. Right?
It's funny. A couple of things pop into my mind of the different era where there was a little bit of a police state that took place on the ice.
Yeah.
And the tough guys are going to fight the tough guys. We knew that. But I've seen situations where a skilled player, and you mentioned Paul Correa, let's say Paul Correa gets hit by a tough check and a big guy. I've seen the tough guy off Correa's team stand in front of the bench and say to the skilled players on that team, and he'd look at the tough guy, he said, I'm not going to fight you.
Yeah.
And he'd point at the tough guy. I'm going to go after you, little guy, you skilled player. and I'm taking care of you. And now the skill players are going to the tough guy. Okay, let's calm down here a little bit, boys.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, it's a great strategy. I saw a few guys do that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Kerry, what would you do if, say, like a big young kid from Ontario came in his first game and he just destroyed Robert Picard for no reason? What would you do? Would you discipline him? What would you do?
Okay, so you got to tell the stories. My first game in the league, I shot the puck in my own net up in Boston. So the next game, Freddie Shearer was our coach. Next game, we're in Toronto, and I'm thinking, I've worked my whole life to get to the National Hockey League. Freddie Shearer made it very clear that he wants us fighting. So Rob Picard butt ended me in front of our bench. He really wasn't that bad.
It wasn't a butt end.
And I spoke to him, knocked him out cold.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, well, they told me to get a place to stay right after the game, so I made the team after doing that. So yeah, it worked out. My parents were at the game. It was in Toronto. I grew up in Brampton, and my mother was there. She's looking at me like, "Who are you?" Like, my father was very proud of it.
Sucker punching an all-star defenseman.
Totally. So, Kerry, what have you done since you retired?
Well, I've done a lot of things. I wrote the book, The Final Call. It became a bestseller in hardcover and paperback. But while I was promoting the hardcover, I was in Quebec, and I had Michel Bergeron and I were on a French show called L'Entre-Champs, and there was another ex-Montreal player, coach, that was on as well. And at the end of the show, and I'm telling stories and the guy's translating, the host, and at the end of it, he said, "Kerry, listen, you were like 30 years in the NHL. You saw all the best coaches, greatest coaches in the history of the game. Who is the best coach you ever saw?" Now, I'm sitting beside Michel Bergeron, who he and I had an issue from my disallowed goal in 1987 in the Game 5 of the Battle of Quebec. Alain Côté's goal I disallowed with a minute and change left that would have caused them to win the game. And he still, harbors a grudge about that. And I said, and I pointed to Michel. I said, Michel Bergeron, and number two. He's the second best coach I saw in my history. And his chest all pops up, Le Petit Tigre. And I said, all the rest were tied for number one.
You were going there. I knew it.
Well, they broke up laughing. So I get off the set and I get a phone call from Steve Dryden at TSN and asked if I was interested in being part of a new hockey show that they were putting together, and with Steve Koulis as the host. And I ended up on them for 3 years. And into the playoffs and analyzing the refs' calls, we created Come On Ref brand and did a lot of good stuff on their website, doing a question of the day during the playoffs. And my purpose was to educate the fans. And it really did turn. My former colleagues, a lot of them were pissed off because if they made a mistake, I had to say they made a mistake. But I always tried to teach the fans, this is how and why. That we're not perfect. This is and I put a clip in it. This is the sight line that this ref had. This is what he based his decision on. So it created an understanding with fans that they got to understand, rather than just sitting at home and watching it and seeing all kinds of replays in real time. These guys have a tough job to do. And I think it created more of an education for fans. When they initially started out, and they could blog on it, I was getting all kinds of shots. Oh, yeah, you effed us in 93 and the Toronto fans and all this stuff. But after a week or two and just dealing, my adage on the ice, Tom, was to treat disrespect with respect. I think you can gain a lot more by trying to come to terms, and dealing that way. You're a very respectful guy. You always were. And such a joy to have on the ice. Never had a problem. But some guys, you've got to try and get them to play on your terms without me being a jackass, me laying the hammer down. So it worked really well. We lost the contract to Sportsnet. They wanted me to stay on and do some other things that I thought we'd run our course without having the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I went into business with my son-in-law, who was a basketball player in college, and he started a VIP hospitality company in any major sport in the world, whether it's the Kentucky Derby or big-time golf stuff, the Masters. He actually took me to the Masters after I finished writing the book, and it was the first time I'd been there. Wow, it was like unbelievable. I had VIP access and all the bells and whistles that he does, and his company's called All Access, GTE. So as I was about to leave, he said, do you have a good time? I said, oh, yeah, Ryan, this is awesome. I said, this is what you do, man. Like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, listen, before you go, I have a question for you. I'd like your permission to marry your daughter.
Oh,
Yeah. I said, kid, if this is what you do for a living, I said, forget her.
There you go.
So then we started a private golf organization that is a philanthropic group. We have over 500 members from all over North America at top clubs, and we do really good work. I just got back from Texas, as a matter of fact, with a bunch of them. We played 4 rounds in 4 days, and so I'm the director of member relations for that. But I also, and this is really exciting, Tommy, you're going to love this. I got a call about 2 months ago from a kid from Detroit. Everybody's a kid to me. Young man from Detroit, and he's down in Tampa. And he connected with me and he said, listen, we have this synthetic ice that we believe is exactly the same as skating on natural ice. I said, really? Yeah, sure. I went down, took my skates, my ref gear. I refereed a 3-on-3 with 2 goalies on this Tampa Lightning training center where they have their sheet. And I was blown away. I could do everything as I did on ice. Well, tight quarters, pivot, stop, sideways, back, forward. Amazing. So I just jumped on board with them. I'm going to put a rink at my son-in-law, his place for his little guys. The applications are amazing. You can put it in a garage. You can put it in a basement. You can put it outdoors. No maintenance. It's incredible. So think about our hot market, NHL hot markets, right? Phoenix. You think of the warm weather market, Texas, and these kids are just chomping at the bit every time a team moves forward. Florida, Panthers, same kind of thing. And you know how expensive ice is for these kids to play down there?
Yep.
So I think this is a no-brainer.
That's great. You've done well. You've done well. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on our show. We'd like to have you on again. I think you got enough stories. We could probably do 3 or 4 shows, right? Keep you going.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, I had a ton of respect for you when I was playing and you're a referee, and I'm very happy I've got to know you more now as a friend. So, again, thank you very much for coming on the show. You're a good man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Kerry.
My pleasure, guys.
Kerry Fraser is great. I mean, there's so many good stories, and he's just such a well-respected guy.
Fun guy, yeah. He's great to tell stories, too. The stories themselves are great, but the way he tells them, too. Fantastic. And he went through his health scare. Glad he's doing well. He's one of those guys you look back at, for me, there's a lot of guys, and it seems like some referees like Scamp and Ella, guys like that you look back and go, like, wow, it's really cool to see those guys again. I had a lot of fun with them.
Were there any refs that you just hated or hated you?
No, I don't think there was. There's some guys that you didn't feel as comfortable having fun with. Like, again, I've told the story many times, but the one where I turned the puck over.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about anything but that.
Oh, but Kerry Fraser, he was sitting there and he was just trying to embarrass me as much as he can. So it showed me that we had a good enough relationship.
Well, that was good that he just basically held up the game. So I mean, there's probably camera on you saying, look what Laylo just did there. So
I remember yelling at him too. And it wasn't really mad at him, but I was like, drop the fuck.
Yeah. I think what I got out of that is he was a human being, and he said he treated players like him. And obviously that showed through, and that's the story he told us afterwards. But yeah, he's seems like a great guy, great ref, legendary hair, like I know, ridiculous hair.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the hair enough. Like maybe it's because I was self-conscious because I got that.
And he still has it. It's
I know.
Incredible.
I know. It's perfect. It's always the same too. It's like a helmet.
But yeah, it was a great show. He's had great stories. We're going to have him on again because he's got a lot to say.
Definitely. Yeah, you can tell we could have gone on for another couple of hours with some stories he had.
Yeah, we'll get him back. Definitely.
Really good show. All right, Grasshoppers. Thank you for listening. We had a fantastic show. We'll see you next time.